Okay, just introducing myself. Once again, welcome everyone. ICAI welcomes each and every one of you to this session. I'm Smitha Rose Vargas. I'm the programs coordinator with ICAI, Immigrant Council for Arts Innovation. We want to start this with the land acknowledgement. ICAI acknowledges that we live, work, and make art on the Treaty 6, 7, and 8 territories of the many Indigenous and Métis nations in Alberta, as well as all the other Indigenous community members who live within these territories. We respect the land we live on, and we also acknowledge there's unresolved history in the treaties ICAI works in. We publicly commit to advancing reconciliation and make intentional efforts toward ending systemic racism through our work in the community as we continue to celebrate and protect the diverse cultures, languages, traditions, and history that existed here before Canada. Just a brief intro about us. For those who do not know about ICAI, Immigrant Council for Arts Innovation, or ICAI, is an arts council based in Alberta. The council was founded in January 2019 with the express purpose of connecting immigrant and newcomer artists, arts administrators, and culture workers to the existing arts community in Alberta. ICAI actively encourages diversity of expression and culture through the creation of a safe and welcoming community where immigrant and newcomer art workers feel confident to share their work and distinct cultural identities. Our vision is to transform the arts community through opportunities designed for immigrant arts and culture workers. Our mission is to protect, empower, and advocate for immigrant and newcomer arts and culture workers. Our values are that we work for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And what drives us is creativity, passion, kindness, and inspiration. And through relationship, we build community. So what do? We provide specialized information and resources for newcomer and arts and culture workers. We create free, inclusive, and tailored programs and networking opportunities. We provide support and mentorship for artistic growth and professional development. We advocate for immigrant arts and culture workers to have safe spaces and opportunities by educating the arts community on how to make their spaces inclusive for newcomer art workers. I'm sticking onto my notes so that I don't take more time. All right, we have many programs and we have mentorship programs that includes our long duration program, Immigrant Arts Mentorship Program, which will be called NAP, Newcomer Arts Professional Program moving forward. We also have our Anytime Accessible Mentors and Residents Program. We have our Artist of the Month. It is like an award or recognition given to an artist that has already worked with us so that they can be celebrated and they get a reach in the community. We then have partnered exhibitions and performances that we have every year. And there are also workshops or information sessions and networking events, sessions like this, where you can learn things and meet other people, build your network and connections. Then there are artist talks, which is intended for promoting artists' work and sharing their story. Now, it is very easy to get connected to ICAI. All our paid programs are only accessible to our members, and a membership is absolutely free. We have our next membership orientation coming on September 22nd at 4 p.m. So if you become a member, you'll get to know more about what we could do for you and how you could help us. To become a member, you just need to go to www.icaionline.org and fill out our membership form. And if you have any further question, you can reach out to the programs coordinator, which is me. And my email is programs@icaionline.org. Now coming to the importance of the session and introducing you the facilitator for the day. Today we have Buki Wanda with us. Buki is the founder of Shira, an immigration tech company based out of Alberta, Canada, simplifying the immigration process for prospective immigrants using technology. Her company has helped over 2,500 people in the last 3+ years on their different path and journey to Canada. Buki is an advocate for immigrants and has made appearances on CTV to share her expertise and thought leadership. Before I pass on the mic or the session to Buki, a few housekeeping here. Please stay on mute unless you are talking or asking any questions. Please feel free to go video off if that's how you're feeling comfortable, especially because the session is recorded. To ask any questions, either use your raise hand option or leave questions and comments on the chat. Buki will address all questions at the end of the session, and I'll also be keeping an eye on the chat to note any questions that are being asked. And I'll pass it on to Buki during our Q&A, which is at the end of the session. Over to you, Buki. I'll just stop my share screen here and I'll pass that to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Where's everyone joining from? Can you put in the chat box where you're joining us from today? Where are you joining from? What country are you joining from today? No one is responding? Okay. All right. So it seems we have a very quiet group on here. So I am, okay, Zimbabwe. Okay, Canada, okay. Okay, so someone is joining from Nigeria. Awesome. Thanks for joining me here. As Smith has given an overview of myself, I am going to just go ahead. I'm also an artist. I'm in the space as a filmmaker. And so I come from both, obviously more from the immigration lens is what I'm here to discuss with you. So this pathway really for coming in as an artist. So the pathway is for artists, is for sports personnel, as well as media people in general. So, there are different pathways. I'm going to be talking about the two main pathways, and which is the permanent resident route for those who want to move here permanently. One thing that you need to note is this is the self-employed route. So artists looking to come this way are coming in. Self-employed people are regarded as business people, which means that they're coming in to come and add value. And these are, examples are here that I already gave: music teachers, painters, illustrators, filmmakers, freelance journalists, and so many others. Whether you work behind the scene on a film set, or you work in front of the camera, or you're an artist. So I just listed this broad occupations to kind of capture based on the people I think are going to be here, like authors, writers, creative and performing artists, musicians, producers or directors, sculptors. This list is not all exclusive, right? There are still so many other roles that I've not put on here, and there's going to be a link I'm going to put on the chat box when we get there, and you can use this link to actually see where you are. So one thing I need to note here is just because you're in this category doesn't mean you automatically qualify. There are certain criteria which I'm going to be unveiling as we go, but just take note. If you're an artist in any way, then you can come through this pathway. Now, so this is the link, and I'm just going to take this link and I'm going to put it in the chat box for people. And so this link is how you find where you're supposed to go. So if you go on this link, the right one would be the occupations in art, culture, and recreation. So if you click on that, you can see specialized middle, the different professions. Any one of this would qualify under the arts. But something I want to also note is there may be occupations that may not necessarily be under this arts, but are still under the self-employed artist pathway. They may be under sales and service, for instance, but they're under it. So it's, again, the list here is the majority. This is the one that IRCC has designated, but there are more versions. So I've put it in the link. Make sure you copy that link and you can look at it by yourself to see where do I fall under this category. Now I'm going to go back to my presentation here. So like I said, so now beyond you having been under that list, what are the other things for you to be recognized? Like I said, this is for self-employed persons only. If you're an artist, if you are not self-employed and you are employed, you're working for someone else, then this is not for you. If you're working for someone else, then you have to be able to come through the other skilled worker pathways, which is not what this session is for. But if you're an artist that you work for yourself, you make money for yourself, you have your own registered company, or you work under your own name, then this is for you. You must be able to demonstrate that you have relevant experience. If you say you're an actor, you must show me where's the portfolio that you have. If you say you're a director, how many films have you directed? All those kind of things. And then you also must be able to demonstrate the intent and ability to be self-employed in Canada. So it's not just enough for you to say, oh, I'm self-employed back in Pakistan. I see someone is from Pakistan. I'm self-employed back in Nigeria. You have to also show that you can become self-employed. And how do you show the intent to become self-employed? It's by how much money that you have. So now there's no minimum requirement financially. However, you have to be able to have the, when it comes to showing your intent, one of the things that is required is a business plan. If you tell me that I need to come, I'm a sculptor, in this space, if you come in and you tell me I'm a sculptor, I am, I'm going to come and sculpt things in here, then you basically, if you say I'm a sculptor, I'm going to sculpt, I'm a painter, I'm going to paint things, then you need to have all of your tools, right? You need to have those put into your business plan. If you tell me you're going to Calgary, for those in Canada, you probably know some of the cities better than other people. If you're in Calgary or if you're in Lethbridge, that also affects how much money that you need. So you have to be able to demonstrate this if you really want to come here. Now, also, you have to demonstrate, the final thing is your intention to make a significant contribution through cultural self-employed activities. Now, there's so many activities that ICAI has done. There's so many dance workshop and things like that. Those are the things, if you're bringing in dances from Zimbabwe, you're bringing in things that Canada doesn't have, because Canada is a melting pot of several cultures. We're a mosaic. And so if you come in and you say, I'm contributing to this mosaic, by bringing in this aspect of my, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from Pakistan, I'm bringing in this new dance and teaching to a group of people, organizing with ICAI to do this, then that means you're bringing something significant into Canada. While that is a bit subjective, you have to be able to show that, and that's where your business plan comes in. So these are the three main things that the visa officer is going to look at to say, is this person truly a self-employed person? Now, so what constitutes, again, I did a breakdown of this. So what constitutes relevant experience for a self-employed person? You need to have 2 years out of 5 years as a self-employed person. You need to have participated at a work class in your cultural activities, or a combination of both. For instance, if you said your film premiered at Toronto International Film Festival, Calgary International Film Festival, that is a world-class event. And so if you say that, even if you've not been self-employed, and let's say your films have premiered twice at any one of those world-class events, then you are regarded as a first class or as a world-class level. You need to have been to things. Maybe you've gone to, if you're not in the film, I use film examples because I'm more familiar. You know your field very well. If you are a saxophonist, if you are a pianist, what is the highest level that you could have gotten, or the second highest level? Where are the prestigious spaces you should have shown your work? If you've shown your work in those spaces, even if you're not self-employed, you're regarded that you have something substantial. One of the other things that also helps is, let's say now, for some of you, if you're already within Canada, have you done any program with any of the non-for-profit organizations, within Canada? That's also one of the ways you can show that, oh, I do have this self-employed experience within this field. So if you have questions, please put in the questions as I'm going through so you don't forget, and we can address the questions more specifically when I get to the end. And then the next one is, what degree of prominence or recognition do you need in your field? And again, I've touched on this. It really, really depends on where you're going to. So let's say now you tell me, oh, I'm a pianist from Nigeria. I'm going to small town Okotops. I'm going there to be a pianist for the only church that they have there, or the only non-for-profit organization, or the only musical organization that they have there. That is a very important space, as opposed to, I'm a pianist, I'm coming to Calgary, and there are 500 other pianists. What really separates you? So I think the value of what you're bringing, the example I use here is the Novak, who is also a world-class athlete, and he has achieved prominent status. So with someone like this, if you say that, if he comes and says, I want to come to Canada, nobody's going to ask him any questions because he's prominent. But if a tennis player from China is coming with no recognition, nobody has endorsed your work, then it's harder to prove. Again, unless you're going to like a small town, then it makes a difference. So it's important that you put all of that in context as you look at this. Now, I wanted to share a bit more on this requirement here. This is the selection criteria. One of the reasons I really love the self-employed pathway is it does not take into cognizance education as much, because what they've recognized and why they've separated this is they realize that, because this, like I said, it includes sports people as well. So imagine they know a lot of sports. Even artists didn't go to school. Some of them did not. Some of you have gone to school, but some of you may not have gone to school, but you're a professional, you're good at what you do. The reality is you do not need to have gone to school to come under the self-employed pathway. You could only have a high school, or even less than a high school, and you will still be eligible. The minimum points you need to meet out of this 100 points, it's only 35 points. This is the lowest points criteria out of every single immigration program that exists. There's education is 25 points. This is for PhD, and I believe if you have secondary school, you still get 5 points. And then you have the work experience, and then you have the age, you have the English ability of 24 points, adaptability if you have family here. So those are some of the things that you're looking at, in terms of this, and it gives you 100 points. Again, you only need 35 points to be eligible. That's the minimum eligibility. So you can't go wrong. We've done this for people that have in their 50s, they only have a high school, and they were able to scale through because of the fact that the education experience is the education is not really that important, and you only need minimum of 2 years. If you have 3, if you have 4, if you have 5/5, it's only better for you. So the next thing would be assessing your plan in Canada and your contributions. This is one of the most important things. One thing to note is, when it comes to the self-employed, it's kind of like applying for a visitor's visa or a study visa. It is very discretionary. The visa officer is the one that is going to determine, is this person able, does this person meet the requirements? Unlike Express Entry, if you've ever heard about the permanent residency pathway, Express Entry, there are criteria. You meet this, you show your work experience, that's it. But with this one, it's subjective. It's discretionary. The visa officer has to be very convinced that this person meets it. So you would see, so now these are some of the things that they've put in place that the officer is going to look at is, your self-employment experience in cultural activities or athletics, your management experience, your personal financial assets to measure your intent and ability to establish yourself. So I think I mentioned this already. They have to check that if you're going to be self-employed, let's say you're a self-employed writer, you're coming in, you only need your laptop to come in. The minimum requirement for you to be to have at least a life is about 13,000 plus is for 6 months, and so for 1 year is about 26. So if you show, okay, I have $30,000, I'm a single person, then the visa officer will be like, okay, yeah, that's fine. If you show, okay, I have even a contract with ICAI to write for them, to write different things for them with a newspaper, and you show a $5,000, $10,000 contract, that is something that the visa officer will look at and say, oh, you don't need a lot of money. Meanwhile, somebody else may need to show $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 because of the kind of thing that they're doing, because it's capital intensive. So if you tell me now that I'm coming in, and because, part of this pathway, again, beyond music, is there are the film people. So if you are a director and you're coming in and you don't have your equipment, by the time you start looking at the cost of putting an equipment, putting a crew together, I'm currently working on my first feature film here, and I know how much it is. Our budget is $500,000, and so you're looking at that. You may not spend $500,000 because you're directing. You probably decide to produce, but there are other key roles you need in that film set. So by the time you put all of that together, what does that really come to? That's where your business plan really explains how you're going to raise the money. If you've gotten maybe a grant, or your partner, maybe your film partner has gotten a grant, then that helps, or any contracts you've gotten, that can help towards your financial assets. Now, under the self-employed pathway, because it's a business pathway, it also allows you to use fixed assets. It's the only pathway, any of the business pathways allows you to use fixed assets to show financial ability. So you can show that I have my stuff in from overseas. I have a house, I have a car, my family, my wife also has a car. So if you, let's say you're married and you have a spouse and they have their car, they have all of those things available to them, then you are looking at you're looking at maybe their salary. If you say, okay, my wife or my spouse is going to stay back and they're going to bring that money in, then you're looking at that. So beyond money, you can use fixed assets. You can use your pension to also compensate. You can use stocks, bonds, and any other fixed assets that you have. And because in this, we always need even an accountant to do kind of like a net worth statement to show that this is the net worth of the person that we're including as part of this. So again, this program is very flexible. You just really need to demonstrate that intent, which goes back to your business plan. Your business plan is the most important document when it comes to this, because your business plan shows exactly what it is, including your financial projection. And then, of course, you now have the cover letter where you also now state your intent and all of that, explaining and backing up the business plan that you've included. The other thing is the significant contribution. So the significant contribution is always another factor that the visa officer is going to use. How would you contribute to the Canadian economy via your cultural activities? The expected contribution depends on the nature of your job. And again, the destination you pick. Does you need to present a comprehensive settlement and business plan to portray your contribution? So I think I've said this over and over. Regardless, consider presenting evidence to convince the officer you meet this criterion too. Now, the process for artist immigration. So the current process consists of 2 significant steps. So you have the applicant, you submit, so with this, it's a paper-based application. So this is submitted a paper, so which means you prepare all of your documents. So if you're an artist, all of you are artists, I would think, or you're maybe watching this on behalf of someone, they need to have their portfolio. What's your portfolio? You should know what a portfolio looks like. What's your deck? Your portfolio, you have to put that together. Where are the credits? Where all of your accomplishments? This goes beyond the resume. This is where you pick out every single recognition. You need to have your portfolio. If you're a visual artist, where are all the work that you've produced? You need to have a copy. You can't say, well, I don't want the visa officer to see it because I don't want them to steal my work. There's no such thing as stealing your work here. You have to present all of your work, right? Of course, if it's still going through a non-disclosure, that's different. But any work you've put out there, it needs to be on your portfolio. You need to show it. Where has it shown? Where have you presented it? All of those things, you put it together, fill your form, have your business plan, have your cover letter, and that package print everything out, you send it to the central intake office in Canada. Even if you're overseas, you need to do it in Canada. If you decide to do this application yourself, you do it in Canada. If you work with an immigration company like ours, we would send it on your behalf because we're representing you. And then once they accept your application, and this process can take about 6 months for them to accept your application. Once they accept your application, then the next step will be they'll tell you to go and do your medicals. So once they accept it, then and they tell you to go and do your medicals, you're almost as good as done. And then they send it to your visa office that is processing for your country, and then they would now process it. Now they're checking for eligibility in terms of inadmissibility, but the first step is to even assess you, which takes about 6 months. The second step takes about 18 months. So right now, processing time is just a little bit under 2 years. But the good thing about this is you're not fighting with people in Express Entry, especially for those who have tried this before and haven't succeeded with Express Entry, then this might be a good way for you to go. Now, the second pathway, so I've talked about the first pathway. Again, if you have any questions about that, put it in. The first pathway is for you to get a direct permanent residency in Canada, which takes about 2 years to do from when you submit your application, provided you are approved for the first part. If you were not approved and you are refused for the third part, then you have to redo your application again, depending on the reasons for the refusal that they give to you. Now, the second part is the temporary work visa path. Again, this is still a business pathway, still a self-employed pathway. Now, there are two processes with this. There's a C10 or the C11 work permit. Now, the C10, the major difference between the C10 is recently, they used to allow for permanent, but now recently Canada changed and said the C11, I think earlier this year, the C11 is only going to be for people that want to come to Canada for a short period of time. So if you're an artist here and you're like, I don't want to come and live in Canada permanently because I have a life outside of Canada, I just want to be able to come maybe during summer and do my performances and go back home, then the C11 work visa is going to be for you. Now, if you are someone that is like, okay, I want to come because maybe the permanent resident pathway is not really ideal for me, this one is better for me, then you can come in through the C10, because the C10, after working for 1 year, you can then now use that work experience and qualify under the regular immigration pathway without going through the business pathway that I just mentioned to you. You can come under the regular immigration pathway after working for 1 year under a C10 work visa. A C10 and C11 work visa, they are LMIA exempt. They operate as both, because in this case, you're both the employer and the employee. So because you're self-employed, so you're hiring yourself in your own company, it's pretty much what it is, and so you're both the employer, you're both the employee. So you have the employee status, you are LMIA exempt because of the conditions of this particular work visa. Again, C10 is for people that are like, I still want to become a permanent resident in the future. However, right now I can't come, or maybe this one is better for me. And maybe you don't even want to come and stay for a very long period of time. Plus, it's faster than the 2-year process of the permanent resident. This one, all things being equal, I think it's still within 6 months is what the processing is, all things being equal. Again, sometimes it can take 1 year. I may tell you 6 months and it might still take a year, but you definitely it's going to be faster than the permanent resident pathway. So depending on your goal, your end goal, depending on what you need to do, the C10 or C11 might work for you. So C10 again is, I'm still going to become a permanent resident, but C11, if you go the C11 pathway, you cannot become a permanent resident with a C11 because it's just for you to come in seasonally and go out. Then you have to keep reapplying. So with C10, you can get a 1-year work visa and then you can renew. With C11, you can only renew only if you make sure that you did not stay the full 1 year, because they will still typically give you 1 year. But if you come in and you stay the entire 1 year, be sure that you're not going to get a renewal and you're going to be refused the next time. So that's something that you need to keep in mind as you think about this. So again, I've just mentioned all of the things that are here. The same policy that works when at the beginning is still what is here. if you're coming in through here, you need to show that your work actually generates in one or more, at least I would say in two categories. Usually, most people are able to fulfill the economic if they are artists, and the cultural. That's why I put it as the first two, right? The economic and cultural. Those are the two things where you need to show how are you benefiting the economy. So I'm going to come in here now. I'm going to put on a concert. There's never been maybe a cultural concert like this. If I put this on, I'm going to hire this number of people. This number of people are going to pay for tickets, and I can show this because I've put on a show in Pakistan, in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe, and 5,000 people showed up and they paid me, $10, $20. If you can show that you have a past record and you do the same thing, then that means you're showing the economic benefit that Canada is going to make money because you're going to do this and you're going to pay your taxes, from here, or you're going to pay people who are going to be a part of it. That's economic. Cultural is what is the new thing that Canada doesn't have? And trust me, Canada doesn't have a lot. So there's always something to add in terms of value culturally to Canada. And we also have a new and expanding system whereby we've crossed 40 million. We're expecting 900,000 students into Canada this year. Just imagine, we'll probably be at 41 million by the end of the year or something. So you can see there are new people coming in more and more who need that taste of home. So there's always something you can. And this goes back to your business plan. And then, like I mentioned, you must meet both the qualifications as an employer and as an employee. In this case, as a self-employed person, you don't need to worry about it. Self-employed means that you're working for yourself, right? You've been working for yourself from overseas. And now when you're coming in, you can afford to still go through this path and pay yourself. The difference in terms of qualification doesn't really change as much as to the first one. The only thing now is you don't need to show, oh, I can pay myself permanently for the next week, because you're supposed to come in here on a work visa and create employment as well for yourself as well as the economy. Now, you need to also, let's say you're going to co-own your business because maybe there's a business partner that you have here, but you need to own 50% of your business. And then for everything that you are claiming, there must be documentary evidence for every single thing. So if you're saying that I've done 10,000, 10,000 people have showed up for my show, and I'm sure that those 10,000 will show up here because I have marketing skills, then you need to have evidence. There needs to be video proof, audio, pictures, financials from that particular thing, not just the general financials that you can use, tickets, all of the things that showed that show. So now I think I've really talked about this, but then the economic benefits, this is the breakdown. This is how RCC looks at this. They look at this from what job opportunities are you creating for Canadians? This doesn't have to be a permanent job. It can be, again, for this period of time, I'm hiring 5 support staff, and I have to pay them minimum wage. That's something that you're doing. Or I'm hiring students, right? Or I'm hiring these diverse newcomers. That's something you're like, oh, I'm taking off this burden from the government. Then, what expertise in developing a business that benefits the Canadian economy, contributing to a Canadian industry via innovation, assisting an activity that promotes growth and job creation in a community, creating training and job opportunities for Canadians, permanent residents, and registered Indians. Training, in this case could be, okay, transfer of knowledge of things that that you'll be like, oh, as part of this, we're going to also train them and they'll gain this knowledge. Offering economic stimulus. Again, this list is not exhaustive. There's so many other things, but this just gives you a bit of an idea. And then this is what social benefits looks like, promoting communities, especially their pride and heritage. Again, if you're coming in, especially communities that have not been any immigrant community, whether you're from Nigeria, Zimbabwe, or Pakistan, there's a place for you. If you're addressing safety and health, would more be for people who are in that health sector. So social benefits is a bit harder to prove for artists, but the promoting communities can be one part that you can do that. And then when we look at cultural benefits, this is the one I feel like artists can really shine. What are your previous national, international artistic awards recognitions? Are you a member? For some of you, this might mean being a member of ACAI, to say ACAI is one of the leading immigrant bodies, and now I'm a member of them. Now I've volunteered to do this for them. Now I've done this. I've taken this course with them. So I understand all of these things. Have you acted as a judge? Is there any way you can start to put your work out in Canada even before you get here, right? Even have you even been a judge overseas? Have you sat on any judging body? Is there an awards? In Nigeria, there's AFRIF Film Festival, which is one of the biggest in Africa. Have you sat as a judge? That's a very prominent one. Then, what are your recognition? Have you won any awards, anything? Do you have any scholarly contributions, industry contributions? Are you a leader somewhere? Are you a celebrity in your field, even if it's overseas? These are some of the cultural benefits that, we once worked with a musician from Nigeria, and she's like number one. If I say her name, everybody is going to know who she is, right? And so with someone like that, it's easy to prove because she has over 2 million followers on Instagram. It's so easy to prove that she's a celebrity. So someone like that did not have any issues showing that they have cultural benefits to bring to Canada, because that's a wealth of knowledge that Canada doesn't have. It does not exist here. And so that brings me to the end of option 2. Option 3 now is the skilled worker route. Now, the skilled worker route, again, this particular presentation you can see is very small, and that's because this presentation was meant for the self-employed pathway. However, I wanted to talk about this majorly, just briefly, because if you're an artist and you're here, and in case you don't know, you can still come in as a skilled worker. And one of the ways you can do that is to go through the regular express entry. However, right now the points are not very favorable if you are, even if you're, I know I put here majorly below 35, but the reality is what we're saying, it really depends. If you're bilingual, French and English, or you can speak French in one way, then you would really gain a lot by coming through the skilled worker route. But for the skilled worker route, you need to be educated for that. One thing I also forgot to mention is with the work visa route, you don't need to be educated as well. So that's why it's a good plus. But I also understand not everyone might be able to go for that. And then, so for those who can speak French, or you're bilingual, then the skilled worker route would still work for you, because just because you're an artist doesn't mean you can't come through the express entry pathway. The only challenge with artists is it's not an occupation that is ever in demand, unless it's just never in demand. Mostly you're looking at health, tech, tradespeople. Those are the occupations that are in demand. So if you're in this field and you know that you can meet the requirements, you can get up to the 480s, 490s in your express entry score, then I would still say consider the skilled worker route. And then the fourth one, I think I'll leave more for discussion because it's difficult to know. But this will be extending your stay in Canada for those of you who are artists who are already here. I've mentioned the job path, so I would be leaving that, it will be part of the discussion and part of the questions that we can go through and explore. And next step, so I'm done with my presentation right now, and then we'll go into the questions, but I wanted to drop this here. Our consultations for self-employed business is $250 USD. We charge in USD because we work internationally. We work with 35 plus countries as of today. And so you can use the discount code ICAI 25 off. To get 25% off from now till Wednesday. The code has been activated this evening. So if you were to go on our website, there is the self-employed is the number 4 on the list for permanent residency. You can book that. Even if you want to do a work visa, it will still be the same one. Once you fill that out, you've done all of this. So you have up until next week, Wednesday, to take advantage if you have that. In the meantime, if you're like, you know what, I'm not ready to book a consultation, I want to ask more questions, because artists fall under business immigration. You can reach out to us on that business@shira.co, or this is our phone number. I'm going to leave this for 2 minutes, maybe take a picture, take a screenshot. of that, and I would stop sharing after 1 minute, and I'm going to let Smitha lead with the questions, and I can also go into the chat box as well and look at the questions you have. So if you have questions, this will be the time. You can also unmute yourself, and ask your questions. All right, I am going to stop sharing now. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Buki. Guys, if you have any questions, this is the time to ask. Again, in this session, like any questions that Buki answers would be free of cost. Okay, to begin with the question, if somebody is already in Canada and they're on a closed work permit, but they're an artist, but they did not come here as an artist. Can they still follow the ways that you have already mentioned?
So they are an artist, but they didn't come here on an artist work permit. So they just came, so they have another profession.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what province they are?
If they're in Alberta, this is just I came across somebody who is working in different field, and that person is looking forward to work here as an artist. So will this be a same route? Like there might be many others who might be looking.
No, it's not going to be the same route. So for someone like that, if they're already on a closed work permit, it doesn't matter whether it's closed or open. There's an Alberta pathway, the Alberta Opportunity Stream that person can apply for. And that stream allows you, as provided you're working within the province of Alberta, you can simply apply under that stream. You're eligible as long as you started your first day at work. So if they've been here for months, they should have actually gotten their nomination already, because that process is very fast. Within 3 months, you get your nomination, provided you have a job offer, and they'll simply write to your employer to confirm that what you're actually working with them. And the moment your employer confirms, you get your nomination.
Okay. For somebody who has overstayed their work, or as an artist, is it like a hindrance when they apply for permanent residence, or what's the way to tackle that?
Well, it's hard to just give a blanket answer without knowing the specifics. Overworking, regardless, in any way is not always good, but it can be overcome, right? So you need to just have evidence as to why. The nitty-gritty of why is going to determine how it can be overcome.
Okay, I see a chat message here. Are there any special programs for Afghans or skilled workers work permit?
No, there's no special programs right now. No, the only people that still have maybe some bit of special programs would be the Ukraine people, and that follows the refugee pathway, and they do that overseas.
Okay. Guys, keeping this open. If you have any questions, we have enough time. Oh, this is out of curiosity, Buki. How did you start your immigration career? You said you are an artist, right? Like, how come you chose immigration consultant route? Like, how was that journey? What inspired you?
Oh, my journey is zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. I'm an artist. I'm a part-time, I would say I'm a part-time artist because my last project was in 2020, 2021, and I haven't done anything because I was like, I'm tired of using my own money. I'm gonna wait until I'm funded. So it's been almost 2 years trying to get our funding for the next project. And so I would say I'm both. I'm a tech founder running my own business as well as an artist. How I got into it, I really wanted to have something I was doing while I was trying to pursue my passion of being a filmmaker, being an actor, and that's how I got into immigration. Immigration was like, oh, you could travel with this, and I realized, oh, a lot of people were also getting swindled by agents that were overseas. So I decided to take it more seriously, and it's grown now, and we're a team of 11 people now.
Oh, that's wonderful. We have
Yeah.
another question in the chat. Can you please go through skilled worker program? They want to know more. And the question is for Fadela.
It's very blanket. I'm not sure how to answer that. In what sense? So if you can unmute yourself and ask your questions, then that will be more helpful because it's very blanket. Skilled worker has almost 80 streams. So what exactly is skilled worker are you looking to understand?
Fadela, are you, I'm sorry if I killed the pronunciation of your name. If you can come on mic and ask what is your specific question. Are you asking about the process or the steps involved in applying, or do you want to know more about the skilled workers program itself? Like, what is the question about?
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. Just basically trying to figure out the process to apply for it. I'm not like really.
So Fadela, are you right now in Canada on a visitors visa?
No, I'm in Canada. I'm Canadian here, but
Okay.
I have originally we're from Afghanistan, and I have cousins who are back in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. So we're trying to figure out what is the best way to help them. One of my cousins is a doctor. She used to be a doctor in Afghanistan, and she worked up until like the end until she had to leave. So I was just wondering if there's something that we can help her with to try. I don't know if that would fall under the skilled worker program or if there's something else.
Yes, so that would definitely fall under the skilled worker program. And then there are a lot of factors that go into that. Right now, Canada and different provinces are actually hunting for doctors from certain regions, and it depends on the province. So Ontario has something, Alberta has something. I'm not prepared to talk about skilled workers, so I don't have that information right on top of my head. But Alberta has something for doctors. And then Ontario has, but they still have to go through the qualification process, right? So in order for them to, so some doctors are able to come in and maybe decide, or even from overseas, maybe if they want, instead of going the doctor route, maybe qualify as a registered nurse instead. If they do that, then the province itself would actually even help them with the job process, connect them with the employers and of course get the job. But you have to go through the province. Nova Scotia has something, British Columbia has something, Ontario has something, and Alberta has something as well. So you have to reach out to their offices. You need to Google opportunities for nurses. I would say maybe the best way, because the process, I don't know what the qualification process for Afghani people would look like, but I know that if you're not from the US or from UK or from Australia, the process is pretty much the same for every other person, which is very, you have to come in recertified. But I know Ontario again and Alberta have something one way, but that's for people that are here. So I don't know if it's open, but if you're a doctor and you're kind of like, okay, I'm okay to work as a nurse because, they have similar skills, then maybe that might be a way. So you just have to reach out to the specific province to say, can a doctor recertify as a nurse, a registered nurse, to come and do this and come through this pathway?
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
We have another question by Hamza. The question reads, I'm a textile designer and a fine artist from Pakistan. So which program will be better for me if I have to apply for Canada?
So the ones that I went through would be beneficial for you because textile is part of the process. Textile, I may not have mentioned it, but if you go on the link that I put into the chat at the beginning, if you go textile makers, fall makers, pattern makers, they're all part of the process under the artists. They're considered artists, they're considered creative people as well. So now you need to figure out, do you want to go under the permanent resident? But then textile making now, I'm sure you need materials, right? So you now need to figure out, do you have your materials? If you have your materials, then that's easy because you can just say, I'm going to ship all of my materials, all of my processes and things, so I don't have to rebuy them here. But you still have to have a business plan. Which province am I going to? So if you go and you say, oh, I'm going to Lethbridge. Lethbridge is a city beside Calgary. Calgary has, I think Calgary is going to about 1.6 million people or 2 million now, because of all of this influx. And then if you say I'm going to Lethbridge that only has 100,000 plus people, then you stand a very good chance to say, I'm going here and I want to teach textile, or I want to help, and from here I'm going to export out to other places. You have a good business case, a good economic case, a good cultural case to be, depending on what angle you want to actually address this from. You have a good case to actually say, I want to come. Now, if you say, again, you can come in through the permanent resident route, you can come in through the work visa route. The work visa route, the requirements are pretty much almost the same as a permanent resident, but maybe you can get away with a few things with the work visa route that you wouldn't get away with a permanent resident route. That's the major difference, but they're still going to require that you have the right proof of funds, you have the right business plan. Your proof of funds is going to be based on your business plan. So that's why I keep mentioning that, because that's going to show, based on all these things, your business plan is going to show how much do you need to run your business for 1 year, for instance. So you can say, okay, I'm going to only show money for 1 year, but you need to show that, okay, I'm going to be able to make money in 1 year so that I don't need more money. The reality is, once you come into Canada, this is the part that is tricky and is very interesting. But once you come into Canada, guess what? You are allowed to work, except if you come as a permanent resident. You can actually go and work and actually do your business part-time. It is the reality, but for the process, for the application itself, you must show and convince the visa officer that you are not going to do that. You are going to come and add value. Now, on the work visa, on the other hand, if you come on the work visa, you must meet the requirement, because you won't get your PR otherwise. If you go and work for a company, you would not get your PR unless you decide to go and get an LMI work visa. Then that means you have decided you're not going to go through the self-employed artist route. So there are ways around it, but you must still prove for that initial application that I can afford to come as a self-employed person. Most people do stay in that path, or at least most people are able to still get a job to supplement in case things are not going the right way. You're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for that, Buki. There's another question here by Thandi. Did I pronounce that wrong? Well, the question is, what's the process if you want your spouse to travel and live with you as an artist in Canada? And does the program offer any sponsorship?
So if you want your spouse to, that's a simple case. Any of the application, you can always include your spouse. If you have kids, you can include them, provided you have enough money. So now if you're saying, I'm a single person, or I'm coming alone, and now I'm coming with my spouse, the financial requirement is what changes. So the cultural benefits, the economic benefits remain the same, but then the financial requirements, because now you're caring for two people. So, and what it takes to care for two people is different from what it takes to care for one person. So you can definitely come with your spouse under any of the pathways. And what's the second part?
Sorry?
What's the second part of the question?
Does it allow any sponsorship?
So sponsorship in what way? Do you mean sponsoring your spouse? If you can clarify that,
Sandy,
Tanya?
do you want to unmute your mic?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I meant in terms of sponsoring me as the artist, like in terms of the visa, the medicals,
So
the
so who are
ticket,
you talking so who are you talking about to sponsor in this
me
case?
as the artist.
So you said is there sponsorship opportunities? So
Yes.
are you
Under,
about like an organization sponsoring you?
yes, under the artist, the whole artist program. Can
Yeah,
I be
so
sponsored for that?
oh yeah, you can. I mean, not necessarily as a permanent resident. Nobody can sponsor you to become a permanent resident, right? But
Okay. Yeah.
an organization can say, we really need your value. And if that's the case, then you would not be going through any of the programs I've mentioned to you, because if they're sponsoring you, then they need to give you an LMIA. That's
Mm.
sponsorship. So they need to give you an LMIA work visa. So let's say Ikai is like, oh, we really like this artist. We want her to come for the next 6 months to come and train and do something. Then Ikai would have to apply for an LMIA for you, and that LMIA allows you. So LMIA is called Labor Market Impact Assessment. It's just to prove that Akai cannot find any other artist like you in Canada, so they had to go and source you from overseas. So you won't need this pathway is for people that want to do it themselves. It's not for people that want to be sponsored. So if you want a sponsorship and an organization, then yes, that's between you and the organization. And if they are able to, if they are definitely able to, then it's possible.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, what's the success rate of artists coming through these programs like so far?
For us, it's been 100% because before we take you on, we make sure that you understand, first of all, you meet the net worth requirements, you meet the net worth, you meet all of the requirements, right? And so when we put in an application, we know. And then, of course, usually all the applications we've done, we do the business plan. And, just because we know exactly what the visa officer is looking for in that business plan. So for us, I can speak to people that have done it themselves, but I do know that the refusal rates are higher for self-employed. And that's because, again, people just think, oh, it's self-employment, I have all of this. And if they don't put and package the application well, then it can be refused for that.
Okay. Any more questions? We still have enough time left if you have any questions. If not, we'll be closing and Are there any other questions? Oh, there was a question like, can they have the slides that was shared?
No, I don't share my slides. No, I don't share my slides. But they can watch the replay once you guys have it, right? And they can take
Right.
notes.
Yeah, we will be sharing this on our YouTube channel, and you can go back and watch there if that is anything important that you want to go back to. Okay, if there are no other, okay, we have one more question. Oh, great, thank you. Okay, all right. If there are no further questions, I'm going to wait for 3 more minutes, and if there are no other questions, this will be end of the session. And thank you so much, Buki, for taking time to share more about the immigration process, the pathways for art professionals to come into Canada and live here as a permanent resident or a temporary resident. I'm pretty sure like everybody might have learned a lot of new things, and many of them might need this to put into action. If not, they'll share with people who might need the support. So as promised, I'm going to wait until 6:39. Yeah, 6:39. So giving it 3 minutes. When it is 10, then I'll close. If there are no questions, I'll be closing. Thank you so much, Buki. And thank you everyone for taking time and joining the session. And if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm just leaving out my email here. programs@ikigonline.org. That's my email. And we do conduct a lot of programs, including like I mentioned before, exhibitions, performances, workshops on various different topics, info sessions. We have a mentorship program. Any artists seeking mentorship in any particular field can access our anytime available Mentors in Residence program, where you can meet a mentor one-on-one for an hour. We have many mentors that are volunteering for us. Can reach out to our website and fill a form to meet any of the mentor there. We also have our next member orientation on 22nd September, and we will soon have an exhibition in October 5th, and everybody's welcome to that exhibition. More details will be put up on our website. Oh, there is one more question. What's the minimum amount one must have as a self-employed immigrant? I believe, is it about the amount that you need to show?
So this amount is going to depend. It's going to depend on, so someone mentioned about being a textile maker. So what a textile maker, because that's going to be, I guess they need materials, and a writer, for instance, it just needs their laptop. What those two people need to show is going to be very different. What a filmmaker needs to show. So it's going to be based off on what your business plan is going to show you how much you need, because from your business plan, you're going to say, if I want to make my next film, or if I want to do my textile making, or if I want to write my next project, how much that would look like. People would already have, again, contracts in place. Some people already have contracts. Some of them have already started coming into Canada. Then that also comes and plays a role. So I think it really, really depends on kind of where you are, how much what province or what city particularly you're going to, the existing contracts you have, that'll determine how much you need to show. Some may need to show only $10,000 or even $0 because they have contracts in place that is going to start vesting the moment they come in. And some need to show 150, 200, 250,000 or even more. So what you need to show is dependent on your field and the city you're going to.
Buki, if I got it right, like, let me reiterate. So basically it is the amount that is needed for somebody who's coming in to live. So to support the cost of living, plus the investment needed to work on the project that we'll be working on. Is that correct?
No. So what is required is the investment. So the investment and the amount. So for instance, if I'm self-employed, remember, these people coming in as self-employed, showing that they're not going to apply for a job. They are not going to apply for a job. So they're going to show that my self-employment. So how much is it going to cost you and your family to survive for 1 year, for instance? Your living expenses plus the cost of starting off your self-employment. For some people, that may be you just need the minimum requirement because the regular proof of funds that every other person shows on are the skilled workers. So maybe some people, because we work with people that already have contracts, they already have contracts with some organizations here, 10,000, 20,000. So that goes into the proof of funds. So that helps to reduce their proof of funds that they need. Some are single, some have a family of 4, some have a family of 6. So that your living expense, your family size, the investment that is required to start and finish up your self-employment is going to really determine how much at the end. So for context, under the skilled workers, if you are a single person, Canada says you should show 13,000. We always estimate, I'll just say $14,000. That $14,000 is supposed to be the minimum that you need to survive for 6 months. You and I know that that's not, you can't even survive on $13,000 with some of the way things are, but that's at least the minimum for 6 months. And that minimum is like your living expense and everything. Now multiply that by 2 for 1 year. That is $28,000. That's just for living expense. This is my living expense. It has nothing to do with self-employment. So that's the way I like people to look at it, that's the minimum you can even show for your living expense. You have to go by at least by the Federal Skilled Worker Program. Now, if you are a writer that does not need to buy anything, you don't necessarily need, maybe you can say, okay, my business plan is to use my office space. You don't need to buy anything. Then you can say $28,000 is enough for me for 1 year. I'm going to create my self-employment. Now, if that same writer has a contract, they can subtract the contract value from that minimum requirement and say, I already have this contract, I've signed it, everything is done, dusted. I'm going to get this money when I come into Canada. They can remove, let's say it's 10,000. They can now say, I'm only going to show $18,000. And now I have $10,000 already waiting for me in Canada once I come in. So that's one way to look at it. But now let's say the person is not a writer, the person is a textile maker. What would it take for a textile maker to actually start up their business, market their business, use their work, market it, and people buy it? So that, I don't know what the cost of that is going to be. It can be 10,000, it can be 100,000. If that makes sense. I don't know if that answers your question. So, and then you take that, whatever that value is, you add it to the living expense. If the person is a family person, then you add whatever the additional family members plus that money, that now determines what the final value is going to be.
Gotcha. Hamza has another question. What if I want to work under an organization in Canada as a fashion or textile designer and not as a self-employed? Will this weaken my case?
Not necessarily. Then it just means you can't come through the artist pathway. The artist pathway is designed specifically for self-employed people. So the moment you say, I don't want to come, then you have to go through the regular express entry or come through school. The moment you're like, oh, I don't want to come through this artist pathway, then you have to go through the every other pathway. This pathway is designed, again, is strictly for self-employed.
Okay, again, that depends on whether they're getting a work permit from the organization, right? Like,
No, so in this case,
now
of course, if
the question.
yeah, so it says what if I want to work under an organization, right? So if an organization gives you a work visa, we won't even be having this conversation because you're
Right.
already sorted, right? If an organization gives you a work visa, then that's like the
Coming in as a
yeah,
work.
you just come in under that work visa. But if you're like, I don't want to come in under the self-employed, I want to come in and just work for somebody, that's skilled worker. And you don't have a job. Because from the question, the way I'm reading it is, I don't want to work as a self-employed. Now I want to work for someone. Then it means you can't come in. Then you have to come in through the regular process. So you have to pick which one you want to come in. Each one has a requirement. With Express Entry, unlike this one, you don't need to wait for them to invite you. You finish, you package your stuff, you send it to them. You meet the requirements, you get it. Now, but for the Express Entry or for any of the other pathways or through the province, none of textile is not an occupation in demand. So you have to go through Express Entry. But for Express Entry, for you to get an invitation, your points you really need to be very high. So that's the downside with Express Entry. And that, again, that's also why they created this for self-employed people. But I know it also has its own limitations as well.
Sounds good. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for actively participating, and thank you so much, Buki. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.